the first test of science was getting out of your car and seeing if there was what you were walking across, if it was ice or not, and I think we all made it in one piece, so congrats. I'm Mark Egan, president of the Chamber of Schenectady County and the Capital Region Chamber, and delighted to be here today for this special dedication. You know, if you think about it, this museum plays such a critical role really at the cross-section of our history and our future. You know, from the perspective of our history, we know that so many discoveries were happened right here in our community, and this place has much of that collection. But we also know this museum isn't about just showing people about our past, but it's about inspiring people to make discoveries to improve the quality of our life, not just in our community, but around the globe. And yes, it's about those of us who might be a little bit older, but particularly about our young folks who come here. And how do we all of a sudden open their eyes to what's possible? Not just possible in our world, but possible in their lives and what they can make happen. And how do we really inspire them? And I think, you know, that brings us to Jane Golub. You know, when we think about, you know, Miss Jane, that yes, while it was years ago that she was in the classroom, I think all of us here knew Jane on a personal level, and she never stopped being a teacher. And you know, I think about it that, you know, the last time that I was with Neil and Jane, it was at a fundraiser for Double H, and I think it was a day or two afterwards. You know, I remember kneeling down, talking to her at her chair, and we headed to California, and you know, but even then, it was like there was always like teachable moments that you had with her. And I think that we know that there's so many organizations, not just in Schenectady and Schenectady County, but throughout the Capital Region, that she was personally involved with. But there are really only a couple organizations where she spent the lion's share of her time. And this place was so blessed to be one of those. You know, as I walked in today and was greeted by Neil, he said, "I'm so glad that you're here." And I said to him, "Well, we know that Jane's here." And I think because she's part of the DNA of this place. So anyway, it's my pleasure to be here, to honor this place, but to honor the special lady that we're saluting today. We have a number of speakers, so I'm going to ask each of them to try to be a little brief with their remarks. I know folks have other things on their schedule, but I appreciate you carving out the time. So we want to start with our mayor. Please welcome Gary McCarthy.
Mark, thank you. I appreciate everyone coming out today. You know, he talks about the history of this great facility, and it has played a significant role in the community, really a center of a lot of activity. But as you go back, there was also a period of time where it kind of became stagnant. Things weren't happening here. People weren't quite sure what the direction was going to be. And it was only because of Neil and Jane Golub stepping up and coming here and breathing life into this organization that it positioned it for things that we've seen in the most recent history, but also, as Mark alludes to, the future, so that young people within the community can come out here, can see the great things that have happened within this community, and hopefully inspire them to undertake projects, ideas, concepts that become leading edge and world-changing inventions, ideas, and concepts. And that's the history of Schenectady. And I'm sure Jane is watching and smiling. Again, Neil, on behalf of the city, I thank you and Jane for your investment, not only with time and money, but just that inspiration that you give to this facility and the community as a whole. So it's great to see everyone. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day. Turn it back to Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, Assemblymember Angelo Santa Barbara was unable to be with us today, but we're pleased to have Alexis Ryder from his team. Alexis.
Hi, everyone. Unfortunately, Assemblyman could not be here today. He had a conflict. But I am honored to be able to attend on his behalf. For those of you who know Angelo, who have met Angelo, he loves to be able to attend these things. He can come up with a speech on the top of his head and talk for 20 minutes. But unfortunately, since I'm not him, I'll keep mine a little bit briefer. The one thing that me and Angelo definitely share is a great appreciation not only for Schenectady, but also those who put so much tremendous effort into Schenectady, reviving it and making it the best place to be. A tremendous example of that is the Golub family, both Neil and Jane. Everything that you've done for our community, my community, I've grown up here my entire life, is fantastic. I've been to this museum several times throughout my childhood and even into my adulthood, and I have nothing but the utmost appreciation for everything Neil and Jane have done. So on behalf of Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara, I would love to present a certificate for the new Jane Golub Gallery opening here at the MiSci Museum. Thank you.
You know, as we know, there's partnerships that make things happen, and you know, one of our chamber's key partners is the Downtown Schenectady Improvement Corporation, and we're pleased to have Jim Salingo join us. Jim, you want to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Mark. And you know, there's a word that you can overlay with everything that's happened here in downtown Schenectady over the last several decades, in particular probably the last 10 or 15 years, and that word is transformation. And two of the people that really have been at the head and helping lead the charge for that transformation have been Neil and Jane Golub. Neil, with his involvement from early on with Schenectady 2000 and Metroplex, and really getting the ball rolling with major redevelopment projects and really turning downtown Schenectady into the amazing destination that it is today. But of course, this facility itself has undergone such a tremendous transformation in the time that I've been here at the DSIC, which is almost 14 years, to go, as Gary was saying, to go from, you know, a nice, perhaps a little bit dated history museum to being a cutting edge science and technology destination that teaches so many kids and adults, for that matter, in this city and in this entire region. And so much of that is made possible because of the generosity of Neil and Jane Golub. You see their names as you walk in here, and I think having this gallery dedicated to the amazing Jane Golub is such a fitting tribute. I couldn't think of a more important name to continue to associate with this museum. So on behalf of everyone in downtown, thank you to Jane, thank you to Neil, thank you to Gina, everybody who keeps this facility a massively important destination for downtown Schenectady. We just can't wait to see what the future holds. Thank you.
So you might keep saying, who's this guy spying on us over on this this TV here? But to my comments before about the connection of really how do you inspire people? You know, we're fortunate the role that higher education plays in our community, and it wasn't long and really after that Gina arrived that a developing partnership with Clarkson University, and of course Neil has deep roots with Union and Union Graduate College, and then as Clarkson came in, and what can they do to not just work with from the education side, but broader than that. And I think the opportunities in the year ahead, in the years ahead, between MiSci and Clarkson are really limitless. So, you know, I think that Tony is really happy that he's joining us via Florida today versus via Schenectady. So, Tony Collins, the president of Clarkson. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
Thank you. I apologize for my location, but you have seen these screenshots behind you. Well, this one's real. But in a very, very serious note, I've been inspired by the efforts of Jane and Neil Golub, their commitment, their dedication. It is inspiring. And so I'm thrilled to be able to zoom in today just to be a little part of this dedication. And congratulations. I sense that Jane is watching all of this. And as a teacher, I think she'd be thrilled with the opportunities in front of us. This is only the beginning. Katie Kavanagh and Catherine Snyder and Gina Gould, the three of them are putting together, with a lot of help from other people, they're putting together a program that not just Schenectady, not just New York State, not just the US, but the world needs. And that is these days when there is doubt about science, more people need to understand it. Everybody needs to understand it. And the programs and the cohesion and the collaboration between MiSci and our education department, our STEM Institute at Clarkson, it is the future. And so here comes kind of Schenectady being reborn in so many different ways, and Clarkson is thrilled to be able to play a small role in that connection of teaching science into the future. So we're thrilled at the dedication at the gallery. We'll be strong participants for many years to come. It's exciting. Thank you for letting me just kind of zoom in for this moment. Congratulations to all. As a little cherry on the top of the cake, Gina Gould is going to be our commencement speaker in June at our commencements down in Schenectady, and that's just indicated. It's indicative of the collaboration, the partnership that we're thrilled to be involved with. So, congratulations to all for this dedication today in the memory of just a wonderful, wonderful person. So, thank you for letting me say a couple of words.
Thank you, Tony. You know, when we think of innovation in our community, you know, we know one of the main drivers, not just here, but really have changed so many lives around the world, is the role that GE has played and continues to play. And I think that we know as a community how blessed that we have been to have global research headquartered right here. And you know, Mark Little led that for so many years. And you know, when he rightfully earned retirement, you know, he could be somewhere else right now, but he chooses to continue to live and invest his time and treasure in our community. And it really means a great deal to all of us. And I'm happy to turn the podium over to Mark Little.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be with you. I came here about 40 years ago as a young engineer working at GE. And I remember coming to MiSci along the years, and at that point it was really kind of an archive for GE's history. And now it's so much more. It's so much more vibrant, exciting, interesting. It really engages the youth of Schenectady in an important way with respect to science and technology. Neil Golub and Jane, as they do in almost everything that happens in Schenectady, have been a central part of that transformation. It's just wonderful to be here to recognize Jane with a new, exciting gallery. Neil and Jane, thank you for everything you do for our community and for what you meant to MiSci.
Thank you, Mark. You know, we know that it's just, you know, members of our community who decide they want to get involved, help and support in different ways. And our next speaker is one of those people. Whether it's serving a role on the finance committee, I think many of us have been here through the different, you know, galas over the years, the last number of years. I think it was the Big Bang that it was called, and hopefully the post-pandemic we'll all be together in here again soon. But was involved in chairing that, involved in the committee before that, and Karen ZW, please come up and extend some greetings.
Thanks, Mark. I'm so thrilled to be here. I know Jane is here with us. I just echo all of the great sentiments that have already been explained here this morning. Jane was a force to be reckoned with. She had lessons, and we all had Jane lessons, and we had so much fun. These galas are going to continue on. in this space in her honor and in her memory, and I'm thrilled to be here today. I too want to just say that I learned so much from Jane, and I miss her dearly, and I am so appreciative of Neil, Jane, Mona. Mona's here. Don't forget Mona. Mona's been so active in our community. We just appreciate the Golub family in general. And I know Jane would be thrilled with this new space, with all of us being here to celebrate her and the family. So thank you.
Okay, now on to the names that we keep referencing, and again, folks can invest time in lots of different places. But a couple of years ago, as you know, MiSci continues on this journey, and again, I think a way of honoring the work and honoring his beloved wife. You know, Neil stepped up from a personal side. You know, he was always supported from the sidelines, but I don't think until a couple of years ago that Neil had ever served on the board. Now, not only a board member, but serving as president of the board. Let's welcome Neil Golub.
Thank you all, and thanks to all of you who have played such a great role in Schenectady, for those from Metroplex, and Bill Patrick, who's written a book about what's happened in Schenectady. It's been truly a big improvement for this community, and I thank you all for being here today. I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you some things that maybe you don't know about. And I'm sure Jane is up there looking down on us, and I'm thrilled to be representing her. I used to call her Miss Jane. One time I called her Peanut because she was so small. Her commitment to this community and to love and affection. We had a great marriage for 57 years, and I'm very proud of that. That was probably one of the great things that happened. She came here and decided what her profession would be. She went to University of Michigan, she worked in New York, and then she came here when we got married in 1963, and she decided to be a teacher. And she ended up at Hillside School in the Niskayuna school system. And it wasn't long before she became kind of the belle of the ball at Niskayuna. Hugh Diamond was her principal, and I remember him saying to me, she's only been here for a short time, but they're lining up at my door. They want to get into her class next year. She was a teacher who had so many things to teach. She taught the kids how to think. She taught the kids values. I'm okay and you're okay was a concept that she taught the kids about how to deal with other kids. She taught them music, and she taught them math. She taught them the 3 R's. And she was known, her legacy at Hillside School was every Friday afternoon she'd pull out her guitar and strum 4 chords, and the kids in the whole 3rd grade would get together and have a hootenanny. And the kids that we met years later would always say, Mrs. G, you still doing a hootenanny? And so that was it. But what I want to do today is I really, not only to recognize Jane for this wonderful recognition that MiSci has given her, and I'm so proud of that, but her real legacy. And I'm not sure that you know her real legacy. Are any of you familiar with the World of Difference? Any of you familiar with the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League? Well, I want to tell you a story. Back in the middle 80s, I heard of a program the ADL was doing. In Boston at that time, the Board of Education had decided that they really needed to do things to integrate the kids, and so they started shipping kids from the city to the suburbs and from the suburbs to the city, and it created enormous chaos and dislike, and the turmoil that went on in Boston created a whole lot of things. There was an ADL director there by the name of Lenny Zaka, and he figured maybe he could do something, because education really is how you deal with hate and prejudice and bigotry, and that's what they were dealing with then. And so he developed a program called The World of Difference, and they did it in Boston, and they got dozens of community organizations to participate. Got WCVB, the television station, there to participate, and they really put on a neat program. In the middle, about 1985 or so, They came to Schenectady and wanted me to support them in a project, and I did. And I said to somebody, I said, what's ADL doing? It's new. And they told me about this project, The World of Difference. And Jane and I talked about it because it was an educational program that ADL built and put into the high schools in the Boston area. And we looked at it together and we thought, wow, wouldn't it be great for us to do here? And so started. When I get onto something, I tend to stick with it until we get it done. Most of that, you know that. And so I was after the executives from ADL for probably the best part of a year because I wanted to bring the program here because I thought it could be of such value. Jane offered to help with the educational part of the program. Well, we learned a lot of things. One, we didn't have an ADL office here. They needed to have one. We learned that any educational program in New York State has to be approved by New York State Department of Education. So whatever was developed had to be written here and had to be approved here and so on. So we had discussions. We met in Lenox, Massachusetts with the executives from the ADL to try to talk through the final discussion items that we had. And they were talking about the schooling and so on and so forth. And they expected Jane was going to do the program. And as we're sitting there talking about the educational program in the high school, Jane, in her inimitable way, kind of stands up and says, I'm not going to do that. And everybody kind of looked around. What do you mean you're not going to do that? She said, you guys are whistling Dixie. If you don't get the kids in elementary school and middle school, and if you don't build the programs by the time they get to high school, it's too late. And they sat there and looked at each other. And they decided, you know what, you're right. And so later that year, there is a teacher training center out in East Greenbush. And she was able to bring together lots of educators from elementary, middle, and high school. During the summer of '87, they wrote programs for all three levels. Then when they completed them at the end of the summer, they brought them to the ADL, and the ADL had to approve it. And of course, the next big step was the Education Department in New York State, and that was an experience. And so Jane had called the commissioner, Tom Sobel was his name, set up an appointment. We went over there, we had a couple of our people at the ADL with us, and she presented the program to all the commissioners. Now, if you've been in any one of those buildings, you know that the ceilings are about 3 times higher than here. And here's little Jane, 100 pounds, 5 feet tall, making this presentation. She did a marvelous job of presenting the program. And she made it clear that the program has to be K through 12. And so they listened. One of the guys that was there said to her, well, when, Mrs. Golub, do you expect this program to be in? You know, in New York State, it takes 5 years. And Jane said, well, I was looking for next year. I was hoping you guys might be able to do that. And so that was in November. And about 3 weeks later, Jane gets a call from Tom Snowball, the commissioner. He says, Jane, we love what you got. I love what you got. I want to announce this at Martin Luther King's birthday in January of '88. Can you imagine? And so he did. And he approved the program for statewide use. And that summer, Jane and a number of other teachers that they had gotten together and supporters went to schools all over the region, sharing literally hundreds of school teachers and administrators what was going on with the World of Difference. Of course, we had lots of great help from the ADL. And that's when the program started in 1988, and it lives to today. And during that period of time, what we've accomplished, and this really is our legacy. I'm going to read you this. Since its inception, the World of Difference Institute has been a nationwide anti-bias program delivered by all 25 regions across the country. In addition to training around the country, World of Difference has been used to educate teachers and students internationally, Germany and Japan as an example. We have impacted millions of students, educators, and families through the anti-bias education training. In addition to World of Difference, ADL has created a school climate improvement program we've entitled No Place for Hate. And we've had a lot of help from CBS in presenting the concept of No Place for Hate. And what happens is that during the year, the kids in the school, from top to bottom, in all elementary and high school and middle school, they have certain programs that they've got to run during the year involving all the students. And at the end of the year, if they've completed the program, they earn a certificate and a big flag of being a school of No Place for Hate. That's what Gene started. And it's your legacy, really. I'm proud of it. Thank you.
Have every reason to be proud, that's for sure. Every reason to be proud. And obviously, the way that she touched our hearts, you know, my opening comments, I didn't expect I was going to get emotional, but it's hard to talk about her without. We talked, so many references about the teacher, but there's no one on the planet who learned more life lessons from Jane Golub than her daughter. Please welcome Mona Golub.
Thank you for indulging one more voice today. My mother truly was a teacher to her core, and she loved this museum from its days as a vessel of Schenectady history throughout its evolution to MiSci. And she expressed her love in a variety of ways as she served on the board, she co-chaired the board, establishing and chairing the annual Big Bang Gala, and working alongside my father to bring new ideas and concepts to these hallowed halls, and providing personal and financial support for countless efforts under the radar screen, all of which have contributed to MiSci's spectacular reinvention. As a teacher, she always placed great value on the kinds of experiential opportunities that evoke awe, that pose questions, that feed curiosity, and seed vision. And she knew intrinsically that MiSci 2.0 held those opportunities to achieve some of those ends, which is why she devoted so much of her time and energy toward fueling its progress. Truth be told, she would have been overwhelmed by such a dedication as this. In her eyes, her legacy lives in the relationships that she cultivated, the people that she encouraged and mentored, the collaborative efforts to which she devoted herself, and the camaraderie that drove those efforts, and all of the millions of thoughtful little things behind the scenes that she did to move things along that most people weren't aware of. My mother left an emotional footprint that will long influence the way some of us approach volunteerism and civic lives. She was focused on the impetus of the work, the goal at hand, and those who would benefit from it. And she believed in MiSci's ability to reinvent itself as a premier place for children and their families to go, to celebrate, explore, and be inspired, the words we see on the wall as we walk in. And she was so proud to have seen that belief begin to be realized. So thank you for honoring her in a way that invests in the STEM education on behalf of children. She truly would be thrilled.
Thank you, Mona. And now, our closing speaker. You know, there's we talked about all the volunteers, and the support of the community is so important. But without having somebody with very capable hands every day to guide and deepen the work, it wouldn't happen. Please welcome their Executive Director, Gina Golub.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. This is an emotional morning for all of us for a variety of reasons. I first want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for setting this up, and Mark Egan and all of the speakers today for their remarks. It's really valued to hear these wonderful stories about Jane. I really only knew Jane for a year, and we were in such tumultuous times because we had a leaking roof for a year, which definitely caused a little bit of stress. But I think that today we're really celebrating two things that I want to share with you. And one is the opening of this gallery behind us, and it's an inaugural exhibit, Design Zone. It's a highly interactive exhibit that explains how everyday items work mathematically. And for those of us who are shy about math, this is going to change the way you feel about math. It is going to make people understand that math is ubiquitous in everything we do, whether we're on a roller coaster ride, or we're playing a musical instrument, or we're playing a pinball machine game. And this is why this exhibit is really important. It's a 5,000 square foot exhibit that really speaks to MiSci's archives and collections, because what we have in our basement is exactly that. It's all this engineering that happened because people figured out the mathematics, and all the original taping devices and audio devices that were discovered here in Schenectady are being discussed in this very interactive exhibition. It is a window into our collections, and it bridges the gap for our visitors to really see what's going on. We're also here to celebrate Jane. And for me, Jane was the quintessential teacher. In the dictionary, teacher is defined as one who helps others acquire knowledge, to become more competent, and provides values for their students so they can grow up to become good world citizens. The influence of teachers on our successive generations is enormous. Each child they touch touches others. Their siblings, their parents, their children, their children's children. Teachers are our guides to the future of our society. And that's what Jane was. If you think about all the people that she touched, with all the little kids that she worked with, it's extraordinary. COVID taught us many things, good and bad. Most importantly, it reminded us of the vital role of teachers in our society, because they make all the difference between enlightenment and dark ages. And Neil just told us a story about the major influence that Jane had on diversity and how we feel about it. Design Zone was designed by a teacher for teachers. They got a $3.5 million grant to design this from the IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services. It provides experiential learning, and Jane believed in experience. As Mona pointed out, she was a beloved teacher, and she knew the value of getting kids outside into immersive environments. I can think no better way to honor Jane, who was a longtime trustee of MiSci, because she cared about the children in our community and preserving the world-class history of Schenectady. And that's what Design Zone does. I would be proud to see you all here today and know that there is a great fellowship in the room, all focused on ensuring our kids are provided the opportunity to learn. I would like to thank you for coming today and for speaking on behalf of Jane and the community, and the influence and the time and energy that the Golub family has invested in our community, not just Schenectady, but in the capital region. I also want to thank my staff, who have worked really hard in the past 9 days of putting together a 5,000 square foot exhibit. It was no small feat. And I want to thank the Board of Trustees of MiSci. I really have to say it's the best Board of Trustees I've ever had the pleasure of working with. We had some dark times in COVID, and everybody stayed on that roller coaster ride during the white knuckling moments. And here we are today, celebrating together one of its most revered trustees, Jane Golub. I think she'd be honored and joyful here. I also want to thank Les for his kind contribution to the Jane Golub Gallery and to Jane herself for making this possible. And again, I'm just going to do a big shout out. There's a lot going on, as mentioned. You know, MiSci is working closely with Clarkson to develop teacher programs and student learning programs so that we are all learning together how we learn and change the way we teach. A shout out to the Schenectady Historical Society, because we are working with the Historical Society to develop new programs together and to be a part of the solution and a tool for our teachers to use. So keep an eye out for what we're doing. Thank you again, everybody, for being supportive of MiSci, and thank you, Mark, for hosting. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the exhibit.
By all means, if you have a couple of moments as we conclude, please go around and explore. We're going to do a ceremonial cutting of the ribbons. I'm going to ask all of the speakers today to please join us up here for that. Thanks, folks, for joining us.
That's how we all want to start our day. All right. Yep, we're gonna pose for some pictures first. Okay. Without cutting. We're good. All right. You're set. On the count of 3, look this way, smile, and cut the ribbon.
You want to practice once?
1, 2, 3.
There we go.